Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury.
Electrifying.
Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon podcast. How are you? Hope you're all doing very, very well. I'm here with Dr. George. Hello, sir.
Hello, good sir. How are we doing?
We're very good. Do you want to tell people your news?
Oh,
if
yeah.
you don't know.
Well, thank you. First off, a big thank you to all of the kind wishes that I received, both on the videos here on YouTube and to our lovely members and Patreon members. It did not go unnoticed. I was very successful in passing my PhD, so I officially can add a new abbreviation to my name. But thank you guys so much. Genuinely, I had to look back at those positive messages before I was going in, just to give myself a little bit of a boost and validation from others who don't know me, but yet do know me. And it was very nice. And it was, it definitely gave me a boost. So thank you so much to everybody that reached out and wished well. I'm sorry I couldn't bring the good vibes with us on the pitch, but off the pitch, I was ecstatic.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters. Imagine knowing ball this much and being a doctor. What are you doing with your life? No, that is a joke. Welcome back, everyone, to the Cannon podcast. How are you all? Hope you're all doing very, very well. We just did a rewatch of the Paris Saint-Germain game, and we're in quite a good mood, weirdly, considering we did lose, unfortunately. If you want to go check that out, you can do so from the link in the description. You can do so on a free trial on Patreon. You can also get it as a YouTube member. You can also get loads of access to other things, so Scout episodes and data pods and loads of other stuff that we do over there on the Patreon side. If you want to go check that out, then please do. But if not, we love you. Thank you for being here anyway. We are here to discuss the Paris Saint-Germain game, what went wrong, what went right, and how we fixed that ahead of the second leg in France. I don't want to speak for us both, but I think I'd say overall our takes are pretty similar, as always. I think it's this. We're frustrated with the aspects of the game that didn't go right, and we'll discuss them. We'll come to basically what went wrong, what went right, and what we do next week. So we're frustrated with those aspects of those games that didn't go right. We're frustrated with the mistakes we made. We're frustrated at how we approached the game in a certain sense. But also that there is an incredible room for optimism going into the second leg. It's 1-0. Some of the takes I've seen and some of the ideas that this tie is just completely over has been baffling to me. Absolutely baffling to me. I don't get it. Look, it was obviously an emotional night. I was incredibly nervous, of course I am, but now it's kind of worn off. I'm seeing and I'm watching the game back again. And yeah, there's things we need to sort out. Absolutely. But PSG aren't perfect either. So let's just, deal with our issues, but also highlight our positives. And hopefully we can do that in this chat.
Absolutely. I think that genuinely the big takeaway was I didn't think Arsenal did enough to win the game, but I didn't think PSG did enough to win the game. And for the most part, some of the things that I saw personally were things that were a little bit un-Arsenal-like in the way that we approached our build-up in the first 10 to 15 minutes, in the way that we sacrificed some of our out-of-possession triggers, are stuff that I haven't seen us do this season. And unfortunately, a moment to capitalize on momentum is huge in the Champions League. You win the Champions League on momentum. And, for example, the Madrid tie doesn't go the way it does unless Declan scores 2 free kicks in those 2 minutes. It's not just the one, it was the 2 in close proximity, the bang, bang. That momentum is huge on nights like this. And so when I have a look at some of the things that we did wrong, I don't know if we can just jump right into it. The number one thing, I'll leave you the out of possession trigger because I think you have done a lot with there. But in possession, the one thing I will say, Miles received for the very first time centrally after 8.5 minutes. Guys, as soon as Miles started receiving centrally, PSG didn't know what to do as far as having another carrier through the middle of the park to go through. And I'm frustrated it took us this long in the match to really do that. But once Miles got himself central and able to float across the line, we started finding gaps and we started finding him being able to carry. That one moment that people are going to focus on in terms of the Martinelli chance comes from the Miles central receiving in a block and having the courage to take it on the half turn and actually commit the PSG block, who are man-to-man and a little bit too man-to-man, I would argue. They're very jumpy. Hakimi, you'll notice at points, the right back is really high up in terms of the 9 position. They are a very reactive team, and so having confident ball carriers, even Saliba carrying from deep, once he got confident, the ease to which he was able to break the first line of press was there. Lastly, our decision to have Trossard as a false 9 works if you're going to have Trossard act as a +1 in midfield and Marino be the one on the last line. Very similar to our use of Havertz against Villa last year. That's the game plan that you employ with a Trossard false 9, but we didn't do that. Trossard was on the shoulder quite a bit, and I felt like that was an issue in possession. It meant that Marino was doing a lot of stuff in the pivot where we know for us to at least carry some threat here, we needed to make sure that we were doing a little bit more with Marino in the last line, not Trossard. And I would just end on this. Bukayo Saka, 2 touches in the box. Martinelli, you're too wide. Marquinhos is tracking that Martinelli run so poorly. We didn't make use of the blindside runs coming on the inside. We didn't get our strong wingers who were wide in lane 5 inside in lane 4 enough. We do that. Very different in possession tweaks that I really think we got wrong.
It's really well put across, straight back in the saddle, and he's cooking again. I think you put that really well. The only thing I'd add on Saka is I think what I was frustrated with in the game is again, something we discussed on the rewatch, is the kind of conservative approach to using Ben White. I get it, Mikel. Like, I do get it. You don't want him up against Kvaratskhelia or whatever it might be, but this guy isn't Mustafi. Like, he can deal with these situations, and it's always risk versus reward. And what does that overlap? Maybe he can only do 20 minutes, but what does a 20-minute Ben White overlap do for Bukayo Saka on the right-hand side to get him inside, get our best player in those situations? And I felt Saka was isolated and he didn't struggle because he's Saka, but he wasn't supported all night. Just a couple of other things before we come to the out of possession trigger. I think I do feel the momentum of the game something you said is a massive thing. And I made a point at the end of the rewatch, and I want to repeat it here. I really wonder how this game is received if that goal is scored at the end. If we have a pretty even game, it's pretty end to end, it's pretty matched up. We have some big chances, they have some big chances. They score right at the end. This idea it was a footballing masterclass by PSG and Arsenal played off the park, I just don't think it happens. People are analysing the first 20 minutes. And we were a little bit poor. And I would love us to sort of take I feel like we grew into ourselves. And I'd like us to take that to the Parc des Princes. And I think we can. I think it's a big thing. But also, we have to remember we haven't been here before. We have not played a semi-final of the Champions League since 2009. This group have never been anywhere near this. We have to allow for a little bit of learning. And the last thing I'd say as well is the carries. I think on the 44th minute and the 55th minute, Miles carries. It creates our best chance of the game with Martinelli. Should finish that. A little bit later, Declan Rice carries in the 55th minute. It creates the chance for Trossard. Probably should score that as well. Probably our second best chance of the game. In terms of PSG's midfield makeup, we discussed this at length, so you can go check it out. Carrying is going to help us. I think having Thomas Partey back is a big thing. Been a lot made about the goal, and you can go check this out with visuals, but just to sum it up pretty neatly, we started with 3 on their 3. They had a 3 in build-up with Marquinhos, Pacho, and Nuno Mendes. And Nuno Mendes was the one who played that ball inside, and Hakimi was inside. We started with a 3. What that meant was, in the sort of knock-on effect, Saka was on the right-hand side, Marino had to step up, Rice had to step up, and Martinelli had a dilemma, essentially, to track his man or to come inside with Ousmane Dembele. It's basically the same goal they score at Anfield, which is frustrating because we should have learned that lesson. But it's basically the same goal, and we don't do that very well. So that's on us. That's poor. We didn't handle that well. But we immediately shift it. It immediately happens. Martin Odegaard drops in to sit on Vitinha in the pivot. It frees up Marino to sit a little bit further back, stops that dilemma for Martinelli, and we solve it. So I'm not, you could say I'm going to hammer the team for not getting that right. They made a mistake, and they know that. They know that because they changed it within 12 minutes. They know that. So what I'm pleased by is the reaction, and now we're going to go on and do something else. So yeah, if you want to see that sort of play out in the game, go check out the rewatch. Plug. Positives, things we did well, because there was a lot that we did well. Let's start with you.
I think our response to the out of possession work really worked. And once we had Martin Odegaard drop deep, Mikel Merino was running into the passing trigger as opposed to running behind in the passing trigger. And for all of Mikel Merino's excellent form, I don't like Mikel Merino running back to goal as much as I do him running into a pass. And that's always been the case for me out of possession with Mikel Merino. He's at his best doing that. So being the chaser and not being the patrol officers to step is a huge thing that I think really changed and allowed us to kind of get a foothold in the game. And again, I'm going to call it the Miles effect. Having carriers, when we finally began to find our carrying feet, William Saliba, Miles Lewis-Skelly, there were times that we were able to break the PSG press quite well. I just wish I saw more of it. And I think when we're talking about that run that Martinelli makes on the blind side, it only happened once, but it was brilliant. If you can have 2 or 3 more of those, PSG don't know what hit them. And this space is on the left-hand side for us to exploit. And unfortunately, as much as we want to talk about the right-hand side, PSG's weakest is the right. I really think that is something that we did one moment that we need to exploit a lot more. And we need to focus on Hakimi, Marquinhos more than Paco and Mendes in the return leg.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think there are spaces to exploit, and I think the big positive for me. Look, the opening 20 minutes weren't good enough. No one's saying that they were, but I think we grew into the game massively. And if you look at the numbers, we beat them on almost every metric that's important. I think they had like 20 more passes than us or something, and beat us by 2% on possession. But in terms of final third entries and expected threat and XG and all those stuff, we did something there. But I think people maybe don't come away from that game feeling that, because there was a flavour to it and a tone that was set early on. But I think the players, which is way more important than our nerves as fans, the players are seeing, in my opinion, it's a massive positive, that they can go and beat this team. I really do feel that I felt as though we were going to try and win that game. We weren't sat there, sort of scared. I did feel we were a little bit scared. I think we were a little bit nervous and booting it long to no one basically in the first half, which was a shame.
Right.
But once we sort of got the ball under our feet a little bit and played a little bit, I think Miles went, okay, I've got this. I think Timber basically, had a difficult time with Kvaratskhelia for a while, although slightly overrated when you look at the numbers. But he had a little bit of a difficult time and arguably could have given away a penalty. But then he began to get a foothold in the game. I think there was a lot of players who I feel, Declan Rice and Bukayo Saka and Martinelli, etc., Marino, who grew into the game, which is a massive thing. But we probably should say briefly before we move on to sort of next week, there are some individual performances that we were frustrated with, and it's not just Odegaard. I do think Raya at times was going long to no one, which wasn't great for me. We sort of briefly discussed Timber. I think Martinelli in terms of his finishing and Trossard in terms of his positioning, I think there's some stuff there. Let's keep this positive. What can Martin Odegaard do to take us to the Champions League semi-final? I don't want to do he's rubbish, he's whatever. He's got one game. What does he do to improve us going away to France next week?
In my opinion, it is doing when you're in poor form, stick to something that you're comfortable with and you like. And I don't mean this rudely. You're great out of possession. Be great out of possession. Like if Martin Odegaard maintains the level, okay, in his in possession work, but brings the out of possession press and the consistency to which he does, wow. He allows everybody to function. That's fine for now. Let's have the conversation in the summer. Let's have the conversation about what we need moving forward. But my advice to Martin Odegaard, you are going away in the Champions League final. You haven't been able to put your foot on the ball. Don't. Respectfully. Don't do that, and do what you're great at. And you are one of the best out of possession trigger players in the world, even at your best. And if we're talking one of the pros of Martin Odegaard, it's that. So I think from his perspective, be the king out of possession that you are, and focus on that. Don't try to make a different in possession game. And when you focus on what you're good at, your other parts of your game will naturally gain confidence. And I will say, release early. Been saying this from Martin Odegaard for quite a bit. Have a clear picture of what you would like to do early before you get the ball. You're one of the best pocket players in the world. You can understand space. Don't let them in midfield, who aren't physical, but they're very man-to-man, so they're aggressive, at times overly aggressive. So make the run. You don't have to drag in terms of holding on to the ball. Make quick decisions. Get it out. Get it in and out of your play and your zone quickly. Let our runners run and let you take a support role to the in-possession work. Let the carriers deep come up. You support when they're in the final third, and respectfully get out of the way. Like, let them carry and let them go through. Because if we're going to keep recycling the ball when we need to push forward, it's going to be a long day.
I think that's fair. Just a final word then on that game next week. We're going to talk about it a lot. I'm sure we'll talk about it on the main podcast and TCB Live and all these sorts of things. But sort of an early look ahead. I suppose my message is this. Let's not let 20 minutes define us. No one is denying it wasn't great, but I don't want to hold on to that and ignore all the other great stuff.
Yeah.
I also don't want to ignore the issues that we had, and we discussed them. But I also want to focus on the fact that we didn't have Thomas Partey available, which is a massive knock-on effect. It's not just Thomas Partey and his individual ability. It's the fact that Marina has to drop back. It's the fact that Declan Rice has to drop back. It's the fact we have to play Trossard in a position he's uncomfortable with. It's 3 positions based on one guy. But that tells us the fragility of this Arsenal team at the minute, because without Kai Havertz and Jorginho and Calafiori, I'm not here making excuses. What I'm saying is, let's accept that context. We can still win, in my opinion, but let's support the team. We had a little discussion about the crowd or whatever. I think we're not necessarily talking to the away fans, but I do think just in general, the Arsenal fan base, we have one opportunity to get behind this team, whether we agree with everything that's happening or not, whether we like the selections, whether we like the players, whatever it might be. There's one game where we have to, sorry to put the club line here, and I promise I'm not paid. Please pay me if you want to. We have to make it happen. We have to make it happen. And yeah, I just want to put out all the positive vibes we can ahead of that second leg.
I think in true geek form, please let Paco lead the build-up for PSG and not Nuno Mendes. It's a simple change as that. And by having Martin Odegaard deep, it forces those conversations. You see Nuno Mendes a lot wider. When Martin Odegaard was higher, ironically, Nuno Mendes got more of the ball. And he's the most dangerous man in build-up for PSG. Let's remember that we're a good team. That's just probably a message I would just say to all of the fan base. We are a good team. And the players believe themselves. I mean, they're not into the semifinal by chance. We've had a brilliant Champions League campaign. Whatever you want to say from the league, let's park it, let's reflect on it, and let's not avoid it. But also, let's remember that this is a great Champions League team this year. They've been phenomenal, and they deserve our support. They do. I mean, this is at what point do you not support? Are you going to say that you don't support in the semifinal of a second leg in which it's only one goal? This idea that this tie is anything other than well in contention, I push back on severely. And there are ways that we've talked about in this video that I think that we can find a way.
For sure. It's so, yeah, mate, one set piece, one action, one shot, and we're having a very different conversation. So let's just keep pushing. If you want to check out the rewatch, as we say, you can go do that. Hopefully give you some lovely copium. Thank you, George, for returning to the pod, the king, or the doctor now, I suppose, whichever you want to call it. Thank you all for being here. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks for keeping it Arsenal.